In this video, I'm going to be comparing the Witch Mountain franchise to the Body Snatchers franchise. When it comes to the highest Rotten Tomatoes score for each franchise, you have a 73% for the original movie Escape to Witch Mountain that came out in 1975. That's the highest score for the Witch Mountain franchise. In the case of Body Snatchers, the 1956 black and white movie Invasion of the Body Snatchers has the highest score of 97%. Body Snatchers wins here. Then when you look at the lowest score, in the case of Body Snatchers, this movie called Invasion that came out in 2007 has the lowest score of only 20%. In the case of Witch Mountain, the movie Race to Witch Mountain, the most recent installment in the franchise that came out in 2010 and has Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in it, has the lowest score of 42%. So Witch Mountain wins here. Then when you look at average score, Body Snatchers has an average of 65. Witch Mountain has an average of 57. Body Snatchers wins here, so it's ahead right now 2-1. When you look at gap between lowest and highest score, in the case of Body Snatchers, you have a gap of 77. In the case of Witch Mountain, you have a gap of 31. So Witch Mountain wins here, which actually means that the franchises are tied heading into the final round. So we're going to look at my personal opinion. When it comes to the Witch Mountain franchise, I think the premise here is pretty interesting. It's not exactly something that I've seen before. Obviously, yeah, there are other movies about aliens, generally speaking, but the approach of the Witch Mountain movies is that you have these aliens that actually look like humans. They don't look like aliens. So they look like a boy and a girl, and actually, as it turns out, they have the ability to move things with their mind. There are humans that want to use that because it's a powerful ability. You have the movie Escape to Witch Mountain. That's about these two aliens that look like humans being taken in by this guy who's quite rich that lives in this big mansion. At first, everything seems great, but then the two of them are like, wait a minute, we don't want to stay here, we want to escape. So they're trying to get away from this guy who really doesn't want them to leave. There's this other older gentleman who actually ends up helping out our two aliens that ends up bonding with them and actually ends up taking care of their cat. He's definitely happier as a result of this experience, because at first he is rather cranky, he's annoyed by them, but then by the end he's going to miss them. You got the movie Return from Witch Mountain that came out in 1978, which is a sequel to that first movie about our two aliens coming back to Earth. They end up helping out this kid to make sure that he doesn't die. Actually, the boy ends up helping him out, and so these two adults, one of them especially, is like, ooh, we gotta get this kid, we gotta grab him, because if we learn how he's able to do this stuff, then that would really benefit us. So one of our aliens is kidnapped, the other one, the girl, is trying to get him back. She ends up being assisted by these orphan kids out on the streets. Overall, I think this movie's entertaining. I think the acting is quite good. I like the way this one looks, but I will say that it's frankly disappointing that in the sequel, our two main characters, our two aliens, are separated for most of the runtime. They're not together for very much of the movie, which is something I would have really enjoyed seeing them together more. I think the story, overall, it works, but I don't think this movie's as good as that first movie. Then you have a remake that came out in 1995, which I actually watched on YouTube because, as it turns out, it's not actually on any streaming service. But this one is pretty similar to the 1975 movie. It doesn't really do that much different other than just changing up what exactly happens when our two kids try to escape from the head of this house who initially took them in. Doesn't exactly play on the same way as the original, where you had that older gentleman that was helping our kids out. Then you have the movie Race to Witch Mountain. I think Dwayne The Rock Johnson gives a really good performance in this movie. I like what's going on with his character, where we learn that he was helping out this crime guy, but then he's like, no, I'm not interested in this anymore. I want out. And then for this experience of helping these two aliens get to where they need to go in order to save their people, save their planet, he ends up becoming a better person. He actually grows to care about them and then finds this lady that he likes as well. I think the story here is engaging. I like how this movie actually does something different, to be honest, because we learn more about what's going on with our two aliens and what's actually going on with their people, which is something we don't really explore in the other movies. When it comes to the Body Snatchers franchise, I think this is a really good premise for a paranoia thriller in the vein of John Carpenter's The Thing, where you have aliens that are making copies of people, and then others around them start to notice, wait a minute, this person is not acting the way they should be. Oh, this is something else. It's not actually the person that it looks like. Frankly, I actually enjoy all of these movies. You have The Faculty that came out in 1998, which is certainly different. It still has that same idea in it, but in this case, it's about all these kids at a school that are noticing how the teachers, members of the faculty, are starting to behave in a pretty odd and strange way. So they're like, okay, something's going on. We gotta figure out what. So they investigate and they realize, oh, the school is being taken over. We learn actually some of the students have been taken over as well, are actually the aliens. I like how this movie does something different, honestly, by ending in a more hopeful manner. It ends in a way that actually indicates, oh, the humans beat the aliens. They actually won. Whereas other movies end in a more ambiguous way, or they show, oh, the humans aren't going to win, or at least they haven't won in this moment, but maybe will down the line. Then you have the movie Assimilate that came out in 2019, which again does something a bit different with this same premise, where you have this small town in Ohio, these two teenage boys that are uploading to YouTube. So they're recording people around town, and then they're the ones who realize, wait a minute, something weird is going on. People are not behaving the way they should. They're investigating, and some other people in town also notice something strange is going on. So then our main characters are trying to escape from this town, though they're also actually trying to upload footage of what they've seen to YouTube to try to get some help, to try to stop the aliens before they take over the whole planet. The movie ends in a way that indicates, oh, there are other survivors out there, so things haven't been lost completely, but it certainly doesn't end in as much of a hopeful way as The Faculty does. When it comes to which franchise do I like more, I think I'm going to say, I'm gonna say the Body Snatchers franchise, actually, because I enjoy all these movies. Body Snatchers, a 1993 Invasion, as well as both versions of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, are all fairly similar, because they're all like dealing with people that are in the government or in the military, figuring out what's going on. I mean, they're not identical, to be sure. Like the movie Body Snatchers from 1993, it's about this government guy along with his family going to a military base. And then Invasion of the Body Snatchers, more about these government people in a town, figuring out what's going on. And Invasion is about a comet, asteroid, something like that, crashing down. It's actually about a space shuttle disaster. Yeah, that's the initial premise here, is that a space shuttle disaster happens. These aliens come down to Earth as a result of that and start taking over. So overall, I think the Body Snatchers franchise is a bit more consistent, and thus it's the one I prefer. That'll wrap things up.